Hello there, people of the internet. Me being an old school military surplus kind of guy, I get a lot of people who go into my comments section and they'll tell me that they would not feel underpowered with running a bolt action or a lever gun or some of these old school firearms designs in some sort of SHTF situation, even if they are going up against modern day firearms. So let's go ahead and talk about how these right here are not actually as bad of a choice as what people make them out to be. And a lot of that has to do with whenever people think of an SHTF situation, they think of like all out, like full frontal combat. They think front line people massacring people in like an urban combat environment. Basically exactly what's going on in some of the places around the world. However, here inside the United States, something like that is extraordinarily unrealistic. It does happen. We saw some situations in the early 2020s where people were going around and rioting and burning down cities and causing all sorts of trouble and whatnot, but thankfully nothing escalated to a full-on conflict with people trying to really significantly take each other out, because if that happened with the modern firearms that we have, that would not be a good time at all. However, more often than not, in an SHTF situation here inside the United States, it's going to be something more along the lines of like a natural disaster or a fire or in-laws coming, so you gotta leave. That happened to me multiple times. But I'm joking, but at the same time, I'm not. Anyway, in situations where it's not people on people trying to take each other out, and it's more, you know, hey, we don't have access to the same level of resources that we would normally have, or hey, we don't have power for a while, or hey, we can't go to the grocery store because the roads are flooded or broken, or there's something going on that's stopping us from doing so. Actually, not that long ago, we had a hurricane come through Florida, and I couldn't leave my property for like 2 weeks because, you know, I did live out in the middle of nowhere, and there were woods everywhere, trees were down, roads were flooded, the National Guard was out. It was quite the mess. It was quite the mess. So that was definitely an SHTF situation. No power, no means to get resources, etc., etc. But we weren't full on like fighting each other. It wasn't. SHTF doesn't always necessarily mean that you're going out to fight marauders and raiders. Like, it's not Mad Max or Fallout whenever it comes to an SHTF situation. Way more often than not, an SHTF situation is going to be something a lot simpler. Now, I did have neighbors that were out on the side of the road begging for resources because they did not prepare and they did not have adequate enough stuff to get them through the situations that they were trying to get through with that hurricane. They just were not set up to be able to survive for a couple of weeks without power and food and resources. Now, that being said, I'm sure that you guys have noticed with this YouTube channel, I very much was pretty well set up. I lived in the woods. I gathered everything that I need from the woods. I got water and water filters, purification, plenty of food on my property. I know how to fiddle for worms. We got water on the property, do fishing, and just I had plenty of ways to be able to get the resources I needed for that particular situation. Now, even if I did not have access to those resources, I do have stockpiles. I just didn't want to dig into the stockpiles if I could go out and gather those resources anyway. This way, well, yeah, I didn't want to go into my surplus if I didn't have to. But in situations like that, where you're not having to worry about like fighting off modern armies with modern firearms and whatnot, and you're just worried about more of a survivalist sort of situation where you got to put food on the table and you got to take care of varmints and whatnot, because the woods were destroyed. We had all sorts of stuff coming onto our property because, like I said, the woods were destroyed. There was fucking splinters and destroyed branches and water everywhere and whatnot. We had all sorts of stuff come onto our property. In situations like that, something like a lever gun or a bolt action would absolutely be more than adequate to be able to take care of, you know, non-full frontal SHTF situations, because that definitely was an SHTF situation. Now, if we were out there for, I don't know, a couple of months, and the neighbors decided to themselves, hey, we need resources or we die, and they ended up like attacking us in our household, and they showed up with modern firearms, which I don't really foresee happening if they're not prepared enough to survive for a couple of weeks. They're probably not going to be prepared enough for a full frontal assault on my property. But if that happened and they showed up with modern firearms, and I don't know, maybe they're ex-Marines or something, modern tactics and whatnot, yeah, this right here would not be the proper, like, this would not be a good setup for going up against an SHTF situation like that. These definitely do have their limitations, and I could sit here and go over them. This right here is a Lee Enfield. This particular one is a #1 Mark III. Fantastic rifle. It operates very fast, bolt throw, 10-round mag, etc., etc. But even with this, how fast you can operate it, someone with a fast trigger finger could operate a semi-auto much more effectively, and someone with an optic on their rifle could aim the rifle much more effectively, and someone who has more ammunition inside of their magazine versus just these 10 rounds could, you know, utilize that much more effectively. Or the lever gun, reloading it 1 round at a time right here at this Kingsgate. Not ideal for a gunfight in the modern day. Having to cycle this thing every time that you want to fire, not ideal for the modern day gunfight. So if someone's coming at you with modern stuff, nah, I would definitely steer away from these. I don't care how cool you think they are not like you can enjoy your cool gun all the way up to your grave, all right? But I don't know about you, I'm definitely wanting to avoid stepping into that grave. But if bad times get to that level of point to where people are actively fighting each other, I'm sure that the people who utilized things like this to defend themselves are probably not going to make it very far into that level of conflict. However, that level of conflict, like I said, is extraordinarily unlikely here in the US. Other places around the world, way more likely, but here in the US, people are just so comfortable and they've gotten so soft, and they don't want to do anything to risk disrupting that comfortable way of life. So like I said, odds are we're going to be absolutely fine in terms of internal conflict. Might have some external stuff start to pop up over the next couple of years, but that's entirely speculative at this point. In the event that there is an SHTF situation, that is a much more likely SHTF situation. Something like this 44 Magnum lever action or a full power 303 British, depending on where you live, depending on what it is that you're going after, what it is that you're doing. In my case, I'm in Florida. The 44 Mag would be more than enough. But if you're up in, I don't know, Alaska or something, maybe you need something with a little bit more power. But these right here would be able to handle that because you're not having to worry about reloading your firearm faster than the guy with the AR over there will be able to aim down his sights and pull the trigger on you. You're not having to worry about a lot of the things that you would have to worry about in a modern context if we're talking about like full-on confrontation SHTF, which is very unlikely. All you got to worry about is pulling the trigger, hitting your deer or your boar or your pig or your varmint or your coyote or whatever it is that you're looking to do. And if you don't get it on that first shot, cycle the thing, you know, lever action, bolt action, whatever it is. Your biggest problem would probably be, you know, hey, is this bullet too big and too powerful? Is it going to destroy all that meat? Because I want to take that home and feed my family. Don't exactly go squirrel hunting with a 303 British or something like that. Alright, this video is getting kind of rambly, so I'm going to go ahead and end it here. I do want to say that if you... I thought I had one. Here she is. If you do decide to go with one gun for SHTF, I recommend going with, of course, the classic AR. This one is chambered in 223-556. It's a great all-around cartridge. But, I mean, you could swap out the internals for this and turn it into a 22 long rifle if you want to go small game hunting. You could swap out the barrel or the upper, whatever it is that you feel most comfortable with. Turn it into 6.5 Grendel for long-range shooting, or 300 Blackout if you want something that has heavier bullets. Like, this right here is just such a good universal do-everything rifle, and it has much more capabilities than these guns here. But if all you have is something like these right here, then guess what? You're going to be absolutely fine unless things get really, really bad. And if they get really, really bad, then discussions like this, they don't matter anymore. Thanks for watching, folks. Appreciate your time. Like, subscribe, share. Description below has a link to all sorts of stuff. Go check it out. You guys go off, have yourself a fantastic day. I will see you guys in the next episode.
I've done this. Bonnie and Clyde be damned. The poor man's Garen. It's a shame that bolt-action shotguns aren't more mainstream.